Is there a chance that Smash could be a potentially good replacement for Gumayushi in the AD carry role on a team as coveted as T1? That is the goal of today's video. We have a match to basically cover with that. T1 did try to actually explore this route themselves, and I wanted to kind of go over a little bit of their thoughts behind that experiment, why it could work, and why it's beneficial for the program, their competitive program overall, especially in an environment like the LCK Cup. So we've got T1 versus KT here. Sorry, I'm dying. But T1 versus KT, they decided to use Smash instead of Gumayushi. And it's no knock to Guma, obviously, because we're well aware of the caliber of player that he can be. But it makes a lot of sense to give their tier 2 players a lot more, let's say, game time, a lot more reps in an environment with a program like this, and it gives them a lot more opportunities to basically feel what it's like to play at the top level, and then they can transition and continue to improve the sustainability of their competitive program, right? And you can kind of see that with this game. They tried basically 3 different styles against KT in this match against them, and it was very exciting to watch, and it looked like Smash fared pretty well in terms of being able to slot in, right? The by far and large, the most important thing is getting used to the vibes of tier 1, especially compared to an environment compared to like tier 2, which has different pacing. You get punished less. The timing is a lot tighter in tier 1, as well as what you're looking for is a lot tighter, and it works well in a role like AD carry as well, because it's not as sort of game warping or stylistically warping as something like jungle or mid, where there's so many different styles available and what you can do and the agency that you have. So there's so much that you're able to control when you play those roles versus something like mid lane, versus something like AD carry, where generally speaking it's going to be similar what you're looking for, and it's going to be relatively plug and play. And in that, we can kind of see this here. So we can start off by looking at each of the drafts. It's relatively standard. The only thing that I would point out here that's pretty funny is that you can kind of see here that we've got a pretty solid backwards draft from T1, but I believe most teams, they actually opt for Kai'Sa here, which is like a little bit stylistically different than what T1 would probably go for. If it's Guma here, it's most likely going to be an Ezreal. Most teams would actually slot Ezreal into the Varus and actually pick it earlier. So it's very interesting. You can kind of really see their dynamic, their priority on giving Smash time to kind of play that out. And that's the most important thing here, right? And he played that really well. Like the main thing you're looking for is just for him to have a really good game, have him get comfortable, and you can kind of see that, right? He's got the helping hand from everyone else around him, a lot of support, and you can kind of see that here. So it starts off with this level 2, he's playing for the same sort of intuition. He's a little bit forward in the aggression, but Keria, able to back him up right there, give him a lot of support, help him identify the same patterns that he would see in his other games, and just create an overall solid core, right? Obviously, you still have the remaining 4 pieces of Exodia. Doran's a new player within the T1's roster himself, but obviously, he's going to be a great player too, right? There's a reason why T1 snatched him up as quickly as they did in the offseason. He's a really constant, solid piece, and, filling in for this roster, you can kind of see how they're still really coordinated. You still have a lot of the core components that make this team what it is, right? Owner, being able to command the map, support, and then you just have the pacing that players like Faker and Keria can provide to the table. So Smash is his only thing that he needs to do is really slot in to these fights and just do his thing, essentially, right? And that's the name of this game. So that's probably why they picked Kai'Sa over something like Ezreal. It's stylistic, right? They have different play styles too. Like, for example, if you look at what Smash has played, he leans much more into this champs like the Kai'Sa and Ezreal. But whereas Gumayushi, he likes to lean more towards those like really long range and like tricky types of AD carries. He plays a lot more Caitlyn. He plays a lot more Ziggs and like a lot more. The styles are a little bit different, right? And being able to tap into that is going to be quite a powerful thing, I would say. So that's a great example of this game. Second game, they go for a bit of a different style, and I really like that, right? Maybe in an actual match, they wouldn't go for this, but they want to try things out, right? So they give KT the Jace B1 in exchange for these 3 bans. It's arguably it's pretty hard to play, but you're T1. You're willing to, fuck around and find out a bit. So they give the Jace. Maybe they have a matchup prepared into it. in this case being the Jax. So they try to match Ezreal and go for a different dynamic there, right? The only thing is that I think while it's great to try this, this did bite them in the foot a little bit with this game because this time the team just doesn't have as many resources in order to address the issues with the KT comp. I wouldn't necessarily say is an issue with the players. It's more so like they don't have the right toolkits to address the situation. What I mean by that is we're well aware that a team like T1 has enough game knowledge and capability to be able to address most situations, right? But you are still restricted to the constraints that your champion is able to do. There's only so much that your champion is able to bring to the table, and that's why there are such distinct champion identities within the game as well. So in this case, for example, KT counterpicks Jinx Leona into the Ezreal, meaning that although T1 have a soft poke condition with Ezreal and Italy, it doesn't really matter because the two ways that poke can lose is one, counter poke, which could exist in the form of the Jace here, and two, the fact that if you just don't live long enough for your poke to be very useful, then it's going to be very hard for your team to do anything, right? So let's say, there's not much frontline on the side of T1 here, and, they will eventually lose in terms of total stat power, right? Jinx is a giga hyper carry, and T1 don't have tools to really isolate that target. So most of the time, if you let Jinx free hit, she's going to basically take over the game. And that's essentially what happens here, right? So if we go into the highlights, there's a lot of fights where you think T1, T1 are trying their damned best to really get something going. You can see they just can't reach Dokdam. It's not because they suck at the game or anything like that. It's just hard for them to play. They don't have engage tools. They're looking to really start a fight and they find Wei, which is like a target but not the right target, because when you lose in front to back, you have to be a little more picky about how you start your fights. You have to start them in a way that it's very suboptimal for the enemy if you lose front to back. And you can't really do that if you're a poke comp. And that's basically what happened. We can look at a couple of the other fights too and like observe Smash's execution in relative to, is he doing the amount of damage that he should be? You could argue that like maybe the nerves are hit a little bit. He's playing a little bit safe. Ezreal's a champ where you really need to play to your limits, and he's trying his best here. You can see he's really outputting. But again, like if you think about overall champ identities, it's just going to be a little bit lower than something like the Jinx or like other potential carriers that he could play. So he does play pretty like as well as he damn good, but there's only so much that can be done, and that's the point I'm trying to make here. Game 3. They cleaned it right up. You can see it. It just goes right back the moment you see that they get some agency, So we have, let's see here. T1 blow up the draft again, and look, they set themselves up. Caitlyn ban, Ashe ban, and then they go for Rumble B1 because the field is basically blown up at this point, right? So, we have to factor in the fearless aspect as well. Maybe they just wanted to get rid of it. They want to go for Ezreal with openers so that they can set themselves up for a good game 3, right? Because now you can go Xayah Rakan 2-3. You can identify your openers and the things that are now revealed based on the context of champions being removed. So your ban strategy can be extremely dynamic based on specific champions and specific openers that your bans are allowed to do. So Xayah Rakan is next in the chain. KT, they actually respond Ziggs. Ziggs knowledge is pretty solid, right? We're going deeper and deeper into the champion pools here. And the key thing to note with this T1 comp, though, is the agency. So if we go back here, you look, we've got Rumble, Panth, Xayah Rakan. 3. Even with Aurora, it's a soft counter pick, but like you have so much strong agency. You're winning top, you're winning bot as well. Mid is questionable, but you have strong skirmish all over the map. You can blow the game open, and you scale really solidly. It's not that bad. It's really not that bad. So when T1's given the opportunity to like go for these things and make plays on their terms, then those plays will happen, and that's basically what happened this entire game because they just blew everything up. And the only difference between T1 with Guma and T1 with Smash You know, it's just they're both. It's not going to be that significant in terms of the key things that make this team so special, right? The team fighting, the setup, right? As long as Smash is there doing his job, he may as well have the same name, right? I'm not knocking Guma by any means. I'm saying they're both great, and they're both going to be able to fill the same desires that this T1 team would need from the AD carry position, and that's the idea here, right? So it's very beneficial from a long-term competitive standpoint, and that's the idea behind this entire sort of series for them, and I really like them for exploring that. So that's basically the philosophy behind this and the point of this video. And I want to see, like, could T1 do this with more players? It's possible. It could be riskier if they went for any other angles of certain roles, because I think, like as I mentioned, it would change the dynamic significantly. But the point of this experiment was to give any chances of experience, and I think it was very successful. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense to you guys, and catch you in the next one. So, yeah.